Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies with today's Monday's Musings, except it's not Monday, it's Sunday, and I have a moment in my own timing to bring forth, I guess, the future based on where I am. I've just turned the camera on and everything seems to be working, and I'm quite not surprised, not shocked, unused to that. I'm really feeling into that actually collectively as well. Originally this video was going to start with the fact that I have a headache, which I still do, and I've had a headache all week. There's a lot going on in the energies around us, and this headache is bringing the old sounds that we used to have when we connected to the internet, that into my ears as well. So I know that there's a lot of shifting around me, but this headache feels like it's gone on forever. Now, the reason I share that is because we are collectively becoming very aware of things that have caused us a headache for some time coming to a close, provided we can let it be that simple, provided we can let it be that easy. Feeling into the fact that we may not be used to that. As I say, this morning, turning on the camera, everything seemed to slot into place. Everything seemed to be very simple. And that has kind of thrown me, allowing my body to adapt to the change. This week, being encouraged to acknowledge what has shifted and allow ourselves to integrate in the presence, in the current situations that are occurring, not from a past perspective. We're going to be blessed with many ways of stopping us from doing that. So even then, trying to feel into it, there was a block. So to recognize the blocks this week, particularly with Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde, the blocks this week may not be as simple as, oh, I'm being blocked. They may be that you are being redirected to where you need to go. An example, the Instagram video last week, completely blocked. Instagram at the moment, as I say this, have currently blocked me from sharing anything that I have made myself. And at first, yes, that really agitated me. And that's where I feel the headache. At first, yes, my view, because this headache is all around the crown and all around the third eye, my view of what was going on was I was being repressed, I was being suppressed. And there is an element of that, but we're being encouraged this week to really look at where we may be suppressing and oppressing ourselves as a result, by believing we know how things should be. So the example of Instagram, feeling into that. On the one hand, the very easy, very lazy assumption could be I am being blocked by powers that be, I am being stopped, I'm being repressed, I can't speak. Sitting into what I felt, being with what was occurring. On a time hop video on another social media, I saw one of the first videos I'd ever made, and the awe and excitement and difference, palpable difference between myself now and myself back then. Of course I've aged, of course things have changed in my physical appearance, but this was in my energy. And I could see, actually, with hubris, I could see with gratitude why I had been blocked, and it was humbling. Very humbling. We are encouraged this week, anything that may rise up, to go that bit further and see what is actually occurring here. To really sense into what is happening. Are we being blocked? Are we being held back? Is it causing an unnecessary headache? Or actually, are we fighting a more simplistic way of doing things now? That was the real difference between the energy of the video I was trying to share and the one that I had shared at the very beginning of this journey. One, an incredible time right now to really look back and see how far we have come, but to be honest with that, not all that has shifted may have been positive. Can we embrace that if we're going to really truly change where we are headed? Not if we take it personally. Not if we get too caught up in our stories, not if we make it more complicated than it needs to be, particularly from a place of not knowing what it feels like to not have the headache, of not knowing what it feels like to have that ease and grace. We are all so aware of the big changes that happen. We are all so aware of everything that has transformed and occurred over the last decade or more. And for some it is more, it's more 30 years, it's more 3 decades actually. We are all so aware of that. Have we gained insight to the whole precipice underneath it? Have we gained insight into what it was all about? Have we reconnected to what we have pushed to one side in order to gain the wisdom of our path? My life has never been ease and grace unless I'm supporting others. And yeah, I'm wondering now how that may actually look for me. Well, that's different. And of course, there's a caution there, but there's also an excitement. This week, when things appear different, first and foremost, we asked for change. Secondly, how much do we really want that? Are we willing to let go of anything that stands in the way of that? And thirdly, allowing that excitement to build. Looking at where it may not feel exciting, but more fearful, and where that perception is coming from, because it's coming from a very, very old headache, a very, very old way of seeing things, a very, very old way of connecting to our higher self that isn't going to take the next stage forward for us. The other thing is there is an emphasis here of being able to do what we can do in the present moment. We all talk about being present. We all talk about being grounded in where we are, the moment of stillness, the choice point, the void of potential. But there is a greater expansion available here. So today this video is actually being filmed on Sunday and it will be shared on Monday because I'm aware of an opportunity and aware of the fact that I can actually create with this opportunity rather than against it by letting go of how I think things should be. Can we see the opportunity in the obstacles this week? That is going to be the key. So the last thing I'm going to mention before looking into the cards is, yes, Venus and Mercury have now gone retrograde. Our mind and our heart has gone backwards, or at least that's what we can believe. There can be the temptation of that, to go into old ways of thinking and to go back into old traumas and pains within our heart as a result. Now, I'm not going to say whether or not to do that. That's entirely up to you. But remember that retrogrades don't actually mean that planets are going backwards. So you may have a feeling that you've gone backwards this week. But ensure, as long as you are gaining insight from it, recognize that there is still an opportunity to move forward with that. I see again the figure 8, but when we talk about retrogrades, the planets don't actually go backwards. That's how we see it. So examining our perspective on the direction that we're taking. Are we going backwards? Or are we going and collecting what we need in order to move forward? Only you're going to know that based on how you feel. It's not about going backwards in our actions or how we see things. It's about going backwards in our ability to feel things. So if we feel in our heart that now is the right time to do something and we don't act on that, what have we actually gained in our own emotional intelligence? If we feel in our mind a very clear ease and grace and message and insight, and we don't open our heart to express that in whatever it is we create, are we moving forward? Suppression comes in many ways. Oppression comes in many ways. And externally, 100%. Externally, yes, it's there. Internally, are we adding to that story? Internally, are we following what we feel? Are we going as guided and directed? Are we allowing something different to be created? Or are we also restricting the reality that chooses to be born right now? Okay, so that felt really nice and clear, which was wonderful. And I'm getting used to it, guys. I'm getting used to it being a bit easier. And it's bit by bit, step by step. I was talking with somebody the other day about releasing trauma in the body and releasing old ways of doing things, but also recognizing that it's a process. And one of the most gentle things we can do, it's a little bit like when a baby comes down the birth canal, it's backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. One of the most gentle, actually more efficient things we can do is to hold space for these backwards, forwards motions, and recognizing that it's that's actually going to gently push us through to the next stage. There can also be, on the opposite side of things, a longing. We may get something really quick that comes through. We may get an insight that comes through, or something happens really easy, and we want that for the rest of our lives, for every other area in our lives. And it's not that that's not a potential, but you know, in order for things to be aligned, we have to release what isn't, giving ourselves compassion with that process, recognizing that it is a process. There's also an urgency to try and rush forward, and that can cause just as much damage as holding ourselves back. So yes, suppression and oppression can come in many ways. We can actually push through something when we're not quite ready as well. So keeping that balance this week, that's the key. Of course, yes, as we go into the equinox on the 20th, it's all about balance. It's all about harmony. That's individual as well. Recognizing that. Recognizing it's whatever works for you, whether we like that or not. Sometimes we can try and rush ahead against our body as well, which can be one of the most damaging things that we do as a human, is to ignore what our body is capable of based on where we think our mind is at, or our heart is at, or where we would like to be. And that can be incredibly damaging. So really feeling into working with your physical senses this week. Well, every week, but okay. Pausing. Yeah. One of the reasons I'm doing this video today is because I'm going to look at a few homes near the sea tomorrow, which is not what I had planned. I'm a Leo, I'm a fire sign. I am not into water. But there has been a real hidden awareness rising within me about the healing power of water, and my connection with water needs to deepen. There's much for me to learn there as I go through my own female transformation into the stages of the crone. There's a lot there for me to learn about the wisdom of water. So I'm going to look at these flats tomorrow by the sea, and I'm really quite surprised. I've been quite surprised at how at home I feel by the ocean. Pausing to have a drink, pausing to take in the moments. The card that's at the top of the pack is actually the Six of Seas, which is pleasure. And I just want to show you this. How do we get from where we are to where we want to be? Pleasure. Now, for me, that's a whole different ballgame. I'm not used to that. And I know a lot of people watching this may not be. We're used to fighting and struggle and, you know, paving the way. But finding pleasure to balance that up this week is going to make those transitions so much smoother. It's going to bring in the harmony of the light that we're all going to experience on the equinox. Many have held space for the shadow, for the darkness, remembering that the other half of that journey is to allow in the joy and the light also. And being aware that if you are someone that has held space for the light, which can be equally difficult, particularly in the world that we live, be aware that it may be time to balance that with some more shadow aspects. But the one thing they all have in common is the inner wisdom of pleasure, the inner wisdom of joy, the inner wisdom of expressing life and living life for what it is, based on our emotions, right? We may get a few concerns with that in regards to the inner child coming up this week, particularly around the equinox, as we look at where that harmony and balance first started to become a bit skew-if. And that's that 30 years, that 3 decades, that headache that has been going on. You know, if you are somebody that, I can really resonate with that had a particularly difficult childhood, letting go of all you have learned, not letting go but working with it, finding the joy in it again, can take its time. Take its time. Small steps. There is no rush, even with pleasure. And that's the thing. We can find something we really like or enjoy and think, I want more of that. That can take us out of balance as well. There's an incredible phrase, I think, I'll try and look it up and put it in the comments, by an indigenous soul that states that medicine, or addiction rather, is anything that's out of balance, and that can be anything, joy as well. So keeping that harmony this week is going to be key if we're going to navigate the emotional waves that are coming, that are always there, but that are coming in the next few weeks until the end of April, right? It's always been until the end of April. We have a solar eclipse the end of March in Aries. So Aries is a fire sign. Aries is the warrior. It is the energy that carries on moving us forward, but it's a solar eclipse. So we may feel that our light is almost going out in order for it to be rekindled with something a bit more sustainable now. And that's where the headache comes. It's not about how we see the world around us, but how we've continued to see ourselves also. And that is what's clearing this week. Okay. 15 minutes in. 11:11. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. Watch out for higher energies. Make sure that we ground ourselves this week. What I'm being drawn to see, there's a little red mark on the skull of a picture in front of me, and it's nosebleeds, high altitude. What goes up must come down. Being aware that that's a natural part of life. So in that we have the two cards that have come out, the Queen of Wands, which is crone transmutation, and the Two of Pentacles, which is cycles. I'm using the Mythical Goddess Tarot deck. But here we have a reigniting, letting that flame go out so it can be reignited. Yeah, the phoenix that rises from the ashes, but we need the ashes first. It's letting all of that fall down, letting all of what was be, so that something new can be ignited here, so that we can actually rise different and changed. It's the transmutation here, the crone energy. Recognizing with the crone energy, one of the biggest misconceptions is that there's no more cycles. Actually, all the cycles are still there. It's just that we don't lose the blood. All the cycles are there. We still have those moments of increased energy. We still have those moments of going within. We still have those really creative episodes within, but all at one given point. Okay, so we're just not losing blood. We're not losing our life force over it. I don't mean just from the perspective of the crone feminine. I mean from the perspective of transformation itself. Male, female, whatever gender you acknowledge yourself to be, whatever age you acknowledge yourself to be, wherever you may be in your current journey, transformation, but without the draining of life force, transformation for the inherent cycle that is within us all. As we recognize with the Two of Pentacles, the way to do that is harmony. The way to do that is balance. Acknowledging that it's not just, oh, I feel at peace, how nice that is. No, it's about, I'm at peace, now things can change. That real knife's edge between what was and what is to come is getting wider within us. How do we feel about that? How do we feel about expanding our energy to hold space for that potential? How do we feel about welcoming things that may not have that into our energy? How do we feel about our own ability to bring forth these cycles? In this card we have the snake. There's a goddess, I can't remember her name, for the serpent. We're in the serpent year, but can you see the cosmos and the earth? They're one and the same. Just like us and the skies above us or the earth below us, we are one and the same. So if Mercury and Mercury and Venus are going retrograde, and our heart is uncertain and our mind is uncertain, that doesn't mean we're not aligned. That means we are far more aligned than we realise this week. So really feeling into not fighting the forces around us, but working alongside them so that we can redevelop that connection to who we are. That's where the transformation is going to occur, with the heart and the womb, with the feminine itself. Again, gender aside, the earth, the moon, the cycles of creation. Underneath it we have the Ten of Wands. So underneath it we have the Ten of Wands, which is self-destruction. Okay, we have that burnout. That's the alternative, and that's the alternative that many of us are used to. You know, this change comes only from being burnt out when we finally surrender. And it's like childbirth, death, transformation, healing. They don't have to be difficult. That's not to say that they're not sometimes, but they don't have to be this huge drama. You know, healing doesn't have to have all the bells on it, and not every childbirth or delivery is something that needs to be on Casualty. You know, the TV program, recognizing the simplicity as well, so that when the hardships do come up, so that when the difficult times do rise, we have that solid footing in the peaceful times when it wasn't like that. Okay, we are so unused to collectively being in the stillness as our norm that we almost self-destruct what is going on so that we can get that peace. We almost need an illness in order to heal, or we need things to be chaotic so we can take a break. It doesn't have to be that out of balance. Underneath it, we have the sacred fire of the white buffalo calf woman, the peace pipe. Okay, breathing, connecting to who we are, connecting to the elements, connecting to the earth, connecting to that more innate indigenous wisdom within us, not linked to a culture, but our own soul. In this deck, white buffalo calf woman is actually justice. Okay, so allowing yourself to be the balance that you're seeking externally. Underneath it, we have the Page of Cups, the childlike innocence that needs to be held and nurtured right now, rather than letting the child adult the situation, holding that innocence, holding those new emotions, holding that new way of being in a safe environment so that it can unravel and grow and blossom. Right. Energies this week and how to best navigate them on a day-by-day basis, please. Be very clear in what it is you're asking without getting too complicated. I'm asking this because of it. You don't need a reason behind what you're asking. You're simply asking, okay? With curiosity and joy and pleasure. You know, the child that, why? Because they want to learn, they want to know. Reignite that spark this week. Energies this week and how to best navigate them, because it's that that's going to change the perspective. We know that where we are affects how we see things and how we feel things, but sometimes it's good to go back to the drawing board. Oh. Yeah. We have the Seven of Swords here. There's a real caved in, being restricted by our own negativity. So this card is pessimism. Being restricted by our own negativity, focusing on all the things that aren't going well from a place of lack of control. We cannot always control what is going on externally, but we can control how we feel. Now, that doesn't mean repress how we feel, but be aware of how we feel, and in that, what it is we then need. Recognizing the impact our mind is having also on how we feel, and how that, you know, 7 is endurance as well as spiritual growth, but how that can almost make things more difficult than they actually are in front of us this week. Underneath, we have the 8 of Cups. We have depletion here, and actually the High Priestess, who is upside down. We have depletion of our emotional awareness and intuition here, born from a loss, but not necessarily a loss of action, but a loss of our own control, our own emotional wisdom, our own innate connection, our own ability to see what is truly going on here. We have these whales, and I know we have a lot of times when they're being washed ashore, and I remember seeing a story not that long ago of a school of whales that had followed one leader that had led them up into the beach where they couldn't actually get back out, and they all died. So really observing this week emotionally who you are following, what you are following, your own illusions included, your own way of being included. If we want that change, being curious, okay, what else is here? I don't like how this feels. I feel out of control. What do I need to restore that safety, that harmony, that balance within me? It's not to say that these things aren't happening. Of course they are happening. You know, it's not about being unrealistic here, but Isis, the High Priestess, sits in the middle of the Tower of Severity and Mercy. She has balance. She has harmony in her own connection. And it's that helps her not be affected by it, but know what she needs in each moment. Know what is going on behind her. Know what could be brought forth as a result. Finding that balance within us this week really, really is key. Okay, so I see lots of people planting seeds for the equinox, and acknowledge whether or not the seeds we're planting are anything different, anything new, whether or not they need to be. They may not need to be. There's, you know, it's great to, one of the best ways to acknowledge our own connection is to see what has grown and what we want to take forward. And that's the choice we're all being faced with. What has grown? Particularly in our own journey. Okay, energies this week and how to best navigate them. There is a apprehension to know. We want to know, but do we want to know? There is an apprehension there of knowing our greatest potential, and then once we know, we can't unsee, we can't unknow, and there's kind of no excuses or reasons then. Yeah, we have completion. 4 of Wands at the bottom of the pack. Once we open up to the next stage, we're going to find going backwards very uncomfortable. Of course we are. We're going to find old actions that we've always done, particularly related to a lack of self-control or a belief of lack of self-control, uncomfortable. If we've seen how easy things can be, how beautiful, how simple things can be, when we go back to making it difficult, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable because there's a choice here to complete these cycles. There's a choice here to bring it all together now in the 4 of Wands and celebrate the journey and how far we've come by moving through it. Rites of passage, really, really great idea right now. Ceremony, really great idea right now. But allowing the body and the mind to say, I've done all of that. I've learned all of that. That's really great. It's not that it won't come up again, but when it does, I can remember that. And bit by bit, that's going to help the completion. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, wow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, now I laugh because 2 of the cards that have come straight back out, you saw me shuffle them, 2 of the cards that have come straight back out were 2 that were up just now. This week there are going to be things that we cannot escape. There are going to be things that no matter how much we try and avert our attention, they will keep rising to be seen. Overall, why we have the 6 of Wands, and in this deck it's called forgiveness, and that's where I feel the chill coming down my head. In this deck it looks like the Sacred Heart, actually. That Christ consciousness this week. In forgiveness, any victory, any balance, any harmony. Remember, 6 is harmony. Any harmony this week is going to come through forgiveness. It's not about, you know, a lot of times we end up going back to old ways because we're talking about decades of rewiring. For those that believe in past life rewiring as well. It's not about berating ourselves, but having forgiveness when we do that, particularly for ourselves this week. It doesn't feel as if anything else needs to be added to that. We can make it as complicated as we want. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. That's enough. And that can be very vulnerable. You know, half the reason we give reasons to be sorry or why we behave the way we do is because we can give it we don't have to feel that vulnerability. And that's the headache. That's what's trying to be avoided. I'm sorry. And allowing that just to come over your body. Allowing that to unravel and transform situations. We are learning as we go. We are experiencing these things as we go. Having that peace to say, I'm sorry. On the Monday we have White Buffalo Calf Woman. So that justice is coming back again with the balance. Again, that's this week. Right next to it, we have the child innocence, which is the Page of Cups. We have those 2 energies throughout the week. It is about forgiving the inner child also. All those times where we've had the opportunity of pleasure or joy or doing something for the sake of doing something, or feeling unsafe, feeling as if we have no control, and then berating ourselves, or worse, projecting it out or getting angry over that rather than holding space for what is occurring. That is going to be coming up all week this week. because we talk about balance, we talk about connection to the cosmos, and you know, there's so much out there on past lives and higher selves and guides, but our inner child is a very valid aspect of that. So reconnecting and getting balance with that light, that innocence within us, as well as we lead into the equinox, because today, that'd be 17th, 18th, yeah, a few days before the equinox, that inner child energy is going to rise to be held, because it's that that's going to restore the balance. On the Monday, as much as we can, finding peace. How do we find that? By connecting to our innate soul, by being honest and truthful with our indigenous connection. What is going on for us? What is it we need? What is it we are taking forward now? On the Tuesday, we have the Page of Cups. We have that child innocence. Whatever comes up, allowing it to be held, to be nurtured, to be, in this card in particular, she's held in one of the shells. You know, when you put your ear to a shell and you hear the ocean, allowing the emotions to be heard. Yours, whatever's going on around you, the collective, allowing them to be expressed in whatever way they need to be. And here it's rest. Here the inner child is resting. One of the things that we can, even with pleasure, right? I must have pleasure. I must have joy. I must do this. I must. Allowing it to be a natural source of sustenance. It doesn't need to be pushed. It doesn't need to be forced. You can't force happiness. You can't force joy. You can't force transformation. You can't force healing. You can't force change. Just holding space for that is what brings the presence. The presence brings the love. The presence brings the joy. The presence brings whatever needs to come up without that judgment. The presence brings forgiveness. We get so caught up in, I have to do this to forgive, and I have to clear this and cut this. And yes, absolutely, from a place of presence, from a place of harmony with where you are. From there, everything unravels, everything changes, everything transforms. On the Wednesday, we have Lakshmi, the goddess of abundance, wheel of fortune. And on the Thursday, we have Pele. In this deck, she's the Tower card. She's the purifier. Now, the reason I share them together is because that's the time of the solstice. For some 19th, for some 20th, some 21st, all depending on what map of trajectory you want to look at. For me, these two energies are regarding the solstice. We have the change that comes from purifying. We have the abundance that comes from transformation. We have the acknowledgement of how rich that can be without the struggles, unless we choose for it to be that way. The Tower card is about surrender. Funny enough, I look at this card for Pele, and I today on my time hop saw a memory of when I sat in, not in Mount Etna, but in one of the craters of Mount Etna when I was about 18, a decade before, or years before she started to erupt. And I remember being sat in such power and so connected, but also knowing I had no choice. If anything was going to happen, it was going to happen. And just letting go of that brought such an abundant feeling of love and trust and connection. Over the solstice, that is possible. Over the solstice, this expansive beauty is possible, but allowing ourselves to open our vision to it. This is what's happening right now. This is this headache. Okay, it's 33 minutes, so I'm going to have to say it. I was going to say the halo of the Christ consciousness. Well, I am saying it. Being clear with what you're going to say on the Wednesday, recognizing you're already saying it in what you do, and being aware of that. This halo of consciousness is what's actually opening up for us all. If we can break through the headache of having to be suppressed up until this moment, recognizing again those blocks that we see as blocks are a aspect of divine timing, waiting until we are ready. And what I see now is almost being pushed through the cow, pushed through the waters, not born in the cow, not born in our waters, but pushed through the birth canal. And that's what's happening with this head energy at the moment, this headache at the moment, because we've had that pressure until we have been ready. And over the solstice, that is going to become more prevalent as things start to shift and change. But the key to making that as comfortable as possible is to be in a space of gentility, to be in a space of being held, to see the beauty of what is actually occurring and allow it to open us from within. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On the Friday, we have the Eight of Wands, which is expression, but it's reversed, and it's the only card that's reversed. So on the Friday, we may... Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, getting clear. On the Friday, we may feel as if that ability to express what we need has become very restricted. And I want to go like this, you know, when you say something, you think, oh, become very restricted, or perhaps needs to be a little bit restricted. You know, Mercury's going retrograde, being very mindful of what we are saying and how quickly that can change the impact. So all this week we've had peace, we've had emotional nurture, we've had real shifts and changes, and we've had transformation and abundance. And then come the Friday, it's like everything's gone upside down, or it can feel as if it's gone upside down. It can feel as if things have slowed down, and almost like a promise not lived. That can really lead into the weekend of negativity, because we have the 10 of Swords here and the 7 of Pentacles. Now the 7 of Pentacles is actually growth, but in this card it's seen as failure. So trying to push things, believing how things should be, believing that they're not quick enough, that they're not shifting enough, and that is as a result of not getting what you're supposed to be getting, of being held back or repressed. It's not that it may not be happening, but your view of that, our collective view of that at the weekend, could very much lead into a real negative shit show of deception, of accountability not being taken, of agency being projected onto others, of not being able to see the light but focusing solely on the darkness here. You know, in this card she's got this huge umbrella for the smallest amount of rain, of losing perspective of what is actually going on, of having growth, but at what cost? Here, you know, that tree, it isn't growing because of everything that's been built up, this technological advances, these man-made evolutions, this is all greed in the background based on how things should be. Look at the effect that it's having on our physical growth by the end of the weekend. So a two-parter week really, that is necessary. Smack bang in the middle we have Lakshmi and we have Pele. This turn of events is what's actually going to transform things in how we see it. Sometimes seeing that we have made things more difficult, sometimes seeing that actually our agendas may not have been led by our higher self or our heart, or a clear mind, can be what shifts our trajectory. It's about holding space for that with forgiveness, individually, on the collective, for each other. This is how we learn, and it's how we've always learned. There is another way coming, but we must recognise what doesn't work for us anymore first. Okay, 38 minutes in. So, major arcanas, we have 3. The fates have us. The fates have us, and they're all feminine archetypes here. White buffalo calf woman, which is justice and sacred fire. Lakshmi, which is wheel of fortune, and Pele, which is the tower card and the purifier. Allowing the many versions of the feminine to rise and do what she needs to do, because it's all about the forgiveness that is now needed on our emotions, on our psyche, on our subconscious, so that we can find the peace now, the abundance that comes from the transformations that are occurring. We can see them as a headache, or we can see them as an opening. Yeah, we can see them as pressure and pain, or we can see them as a crowning into our own sovereignty. What do we need to take something from struggle to ease and grace? Where can we find harmony, connecting to the feminine within us, restoring that balance beyond gender, our emotional wisdom, what it is we need to feel safe, how we are able to express what we are expressing. On a minor arcana level, we have 1, 2, 2. So we have 2 wand cards here. I'm going to stick with the wands this week. Stick with the imbalances in regards to spiritual energy or ambition or drive, because even though it's uncomfortable, it's that's going to create the harmony that we're looking for. I wanted to go straight to the sword cards because of the journey of the medicine wheel. However, be open to a different way of doing things this week. Be open to a new position that needs to be taken if we are to think about what transformation is. Connecting to that more sacred element of creativity this week is going to be pivotal if we are going to receive any forgiveness that has come from feeling as if things have taken their time, as if things have caused more of a headache than they need, as if things aren't quite shifting in the way that we'd like them to shift. If our story was just about us, it would be very streamlined, it would be very simple. There are a lot of things that are playing out around us for different reasons. An example, I'm looking into renting and then at one point buying, hopefully down the line. There are so many laws changing in regards to that now. Recognise the small impact you think you're having and the outcome on a far greater picture. Acknowledge that what you are expressing is being heard, but expand it beyond just you this week, and you will see how quickly things are falling into place, how divinely timed they all are. Closing our heart off to that, chaining ourselves up into the one person, the one example, the one incident, making it all about the self this week is what's going to make it feel very restricted. We then have 1 cup card, 1 sword card, 1 pentacle card. There's more to come with the wands. Acknowledging that these emotions that we're feeling, it's about seeing them for the first time. And that can be really difficult, particularly when we've linked them to a story, particularly when they've been connected to a trauma or something that's happened before. We can go backwards by not acknowledging them in this moment for what they are, allowing the emotions to be held, to be heard, to be grown from, rather than polluted before they've even had a chance to spring up. Our mindset, be very mindful of the fact that many things are trying to come to an end. Many things are trying to come to completion. We can see it as if, oh my God, I'm going through this all over again. Oh my God, this happened, da 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 da. Or we can think, oh, okay, this is starting to fizzle itself out. Individually and collectively, there's a lot of stories rising as if they are as intense as what they were before. Right before the end of something, it feels huge. Is it? If you're unable to cope with something, if you feel as if something is too much or as if nothing has changed, you are totally disregarding your own growth. You are not the person that you were because of everything that you've been through. And this week, by seeing that, we will recognize that the storms around us aren't as big as they once were because we are bigger than them. There is 1 pentacle card, and that's growth. But as I say, in this card in particular, the growth is as a form of failure. We may feel that way. We may feel as if nothing has actually grown. We may feel as if we haven't got anywhere. That may be true as well. Acknowledging that with forgiveness. I thought this was going to take me here, but actually I'm taking forward the old wounds or the old ways of being or the old connections. I thought I'd be further along by now, or having that compassion for yourself, recognizing that berating yourself grows nothing, but ignoring it as well grows nothing. So having that awareness, that harmony and that balance, to be honest, to start again. Okay, this didn't work. This is what I need to do about that. I'm feeling into that. Allowing the mind to have its day, to finish whatever it needed to keep bringing up in order for you to keep growing the same thing. And then just feeling into what that could now bring. And acknowledging our own view on what growth is as well. We can see something as a failure, and that's the 2 wand cards. We can see something as a failure because this is how we expected it to be, and it's that can actually repress our expression. Think back to that inner child within you. You know, there's this big thing, particularly in the spiritual worlds, that if things don't go to plan, you're not aligned. If things don't go to plan, you don't value yourself. If things don't go to plan, X, Y, and Z, fill in the narrative. And what that does on that inner child, imagine coming home, I've made this picture. Well, that's not what I wanted. Imagine that over decades of our life, because that is what we're doing. I'm all for healing. I'm all for restoring balance and helping with any traumas and any quote unquote blocks we feel we may have. But that comes from acknowledging whether or not it's a block. That comes from acknowledging what it is we are hoping to gain. That comes from acknowledging whether or not that is growth, or whether that's run by the mind. Having that balance, having that authenticity and that truth with yourself this week is going to be pivotal. Why? Well, let's pull a card. There is, as I say, the completion at the very bottom of the pack. Okay, right, let me shuffle them a bit more. We may have to dig a bit deeper this week if we want to see beyond the repetitive messages. Okay. One card this week. What's it all about? The Ace of Swords and the 7 of Wands. We have courage and realization. Again, it's that crown energy here, really connecting to allow a higher light to come in, to have the courage to feel into what is occurring, what is growing, and be honest with ourselves. Do we still want that? Connecting to that more inspiring ease and grace and simplicity that is trying to come through. Having the courage to embrace and become the new whatever it may be we have been seeking, whether that's a new relationship, whether that's a new job, whether that's a new health regime, whatever that may be, having the courage to stand and open ourselves up to what we need in order to embody that. Take care, and I shall see you next week.